Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. So, first of all, it's my great honor to introduce my dear friend, Randhir um, Vieira, who uh, is about to leave his role as Chief Product Officer at Omata Health after being there for 5.5 years. He is embarking on a new journey, which maybe he'll share in his intro. But Vandira and I have known each other for many, many years. He's been part of my Product Leader Summit community and then joined Sidebar probably a year and a half or so ago. And what I think has been so great is that in his Sidebar group, um, his group was very encouraging of him to start and teach a Maven course. And so, what he's going to be sharing with us today, I think, is part of the curriculum from the Maven course, if I remember correctly. Because when he shared that he was teaching a Maven course with me, I was like, "Oh my gosh, Randy, how are you not doing a member session with our Sidebar community?" And so here we are today. Super excited to have Randhir here. Randhir, I'm going to hand it off to you to introduce yourself, tell your own story, and then share um, your listening lessons and insights with us. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And as usual, is amazing because not only does she reflect what I was saying, but it doesn't feel great in the moment, but she certainly pushes me to do things that I'm not comfortable with, including doing this session. So reluctantly, thank you, Ha. No, thank you. So I want you to just drop in the chat. What is your goal for the session? You guys have lots of things you could be doing, and you chose to be here, and I appreciate it. But I am curious to hear what is your goal for the session? And I want to hear what that is, whether it's in your Zoom chat, if you want to just come off mute and shout it out, that's great.
I'll say, besides the interesting title and seeing, where the analogy came from, I'm always interested in tactics. Yeah.
Great. Love it.
Yeah, always looking for blind sides. And so if you have blind spots and whatnot. So we all want to show up and drive in the right direction. And so this is why I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks, Stephen, Shalini. We have curiosity about the title, wanting to learn and improve, which is so important for all of us, but especially as leaders. All right. So this is not a talk, it's a workshop, and that's intentional. So we will go through a bunch of content, but keep good notes because you're going to be putting that content into practice in this session itself. So we will get to that part in a bit, and you're going to have an opportunity to practice, and then we'll come back. So let's get into it. So first of all, I think there was a lot of curiosity on the title. And again, kudos to Ha for extracting this from the content and putting it into the title, which certainly made it a lot more interesting and intriguing to people than the one I had. So thank you again, Ha. So HiPPO comes from this acronym that many of you may know, which is the highest paid person's opinion. So that's why it's not all capitalized. So HI is highest paid. And when you look at the animal, hippo, you notice small ears and big mouth. And sometimes if we're not careful, I'm sure we've all experienced hippos, and I might admit myself, sometimes I have operated as a hippo. And what that usually shows up as is somebody coming into a room, not really reading the room, not hearing or inviting other opinions, and just telling people what they should do. So sometimes because of stress or a variety of other reasons that might show up. And there are definitely scenarios where that might be appropriate, but it's unlikely that it's most of the scenarios. And so what I'd like to invite you to do is to listen like an elephant, which has big ears and a small mouth. Right? So ignore the trunk, but the mouth is actually small relative to the ears. And so that's the invitation. And we'll go through what that looks like with specific examples. So a little bit about me. I am not a PhD in communications. I am a practitioner and trying to get better just like you. So what I'm sharing with you are my personal experiences, battle-hardened things that I've learned and heard. I grew up in India. I came to the US. I worked in India as well for several years. Came to the US to study, did my master's and thought I would go back, but got hooked on Silicon Valley. And for me, it's like being a kid in a candy store. Truly love the experience. And I have a wife and 2 kids. My 2 kids are both in college now. So it's a new phase of life. I have still got a COVID hangover of baking bread every week. And so that's still lasting. And I love that experience. I got to go to Ken's Bakery, who's the book that I follow. So that was like a pilgrimage for me. Totally loved it a few weeks ago. I read and listen to podcasts just an insane amount. So you will have a reading list, and we'll publish that to you today as well, of where a lot of the source material is. I've worked at a variety of companies. This is my 4th startup that I'm at. And I will be done with this startup after 5.5 years, as I mentioned, at the end of April. And I'm excited for my next chapter, which I am still crafting. So with that, you'll see this theme again. None of the ideas here are truly things that I have come up with, but I've really gathered what I've seen other evidence-based methods, what I've seen other people use, the books, etc. And what I've done is really collect them and put them in a package here for you. So they're all evidence-based, and they're things that I have used and found to be effective. So that's what I'm really sharing with you. So there's a lot to cover today, and this isn't a lecture. So the key is how can we listen better? And you'll all get a copy of this deck, so don't worry about making too many notes. But what we're covering here today is one part of a workshop that I run. And again, if you're interested in the workshop, there'll be a link later that you can sign up for. But what we're going to focus on today is, why do we find it hard to listen? And to help with that, rather than tell you, I'm going to show you something. So there are going to be some instructions on here, and I'm going to invite you to just follow those instructions on the screen, and then we're going to have a short reflection.
The monkey business illusion.
Are you able to hear, by the way?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
How many times the players wearing white passed the ball? The correct answer is 16.
So how many people got that? Just shout out if any of you got the 16.
Steven, I saw his hand.
All right. Great. Okay, now watch for the next couple of questions.
In passes. Did you spot the gorilla?
Stephen, did you?
For people who haven't seen or heard about a video.
No, because I focused on where the ball was going, which is looking for the tree in the forest. I was singularly focused on the white and the ball.
Did you notice the curtain changing color, or the player on the black team leaving the game?
So if you don't believe it, let's rewind and watch it again.
Watch it again. Here comes the gorilla, and there goes a player, and the curtain is changing from red to gold. When you're looking for a gorilla, you often miss other unexpected events. And that's the monkey business.
All right. So Stephen shared his experience. What do other folks, what did you notice? What was happening there? What about your own attention?
If you want to take 1 second, just share one of the things. In my career, my prior career was an attorney, and they always taught you call of the question. So you frame the facts that you're analyzing based on what the question is. So the question was the passes, which put binders on me, and I was watching the ball as opposed to looking at the bigger picture. So again, that's what I need to focus on. But it's kind of like recovering attorney. You gave me the question, so my brain immediately focused on the ball, ignored everything else.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Yeah, the power of framing and questions. Other reflections?
Yeah, I was really focused on getting the number of passes right, and I did.
And did you missed the gorilla?
No, the gorilla I noticed,
Okay.
but not the other two.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I like this video because it's a commonly known illusion. So if you know about the monkey, like I did, it's very easy to kind of tune out and go, ah, yes, I'm smarter. I know, I'm going to look for the monkey. But then it still illustrates the underlying point, which is your attention is focused on that thing, and so you miss all of the other things that are happening. Of course, you miss the number of passes, but you also miss the things that you weren't expecting.
Yes. Yes. Love those reflections. So yeah, that's the key, is you notice what you're looking for. So the question is, what are you looking for? Are you looking for mistakes? Are you looking to win the debate? Are you looking to catch people doing well? Right, the number of passes caught, etc. And we're going to unpack some of this, because this is the key in being a good listener, is what are we looking for?
Randhir, for me, like, yeah, I do struggle with listening. I feel like I have ADHD, but also I feel like I'm trying to craft a response ahead of the person finishing. And so that's the problem that I have, is that I'm thinking about what I want to say next, as opposed to
Exactly.
what intently
Yeah.
on what the person
Yeah.
is saying.
That's a great reflection. Yeah. So hi, it's almost like and it may not be to win the debate, but it's like, what am I going to say next? Right? Yeah. Thank you. And that brings us to these three modes of listening, primary modes of listening. Am I listening to win, which is similar to what Ha was sharing? What am I going to say next? Right? And sometimes it can come from a good place of what can I add to the conversation, but my motor is running. And when my motor is running, it's hard to really hear. Another is, am I learning to fix, or am I listening to fix? Am I trying to extract what problem is this person having so that I can offer a solution? And so that, of course, is still the motor running problem. And it's hard for me to truly hear somebody if I'm trying to figure out what my suggestion for a fix might be. Or am I trying to learn? Am I trying to genuinely learn what this person is saying? Where are they coming from? And all these modes are good modes, right? It's not like one is better than the other. They're all good in the right place. And the key is starting here with this intent. So what am I looking for? Am I looking to learn? And am I just focused on that? And keep the motor running and the thoughts to a minimum to focus. And we'll talk about tools like the reflecting or mirroring to really help me and help the other person know that I'm really focused on this part first. There are a couple of helpful tips as well, which is you don't have to guess what people want. You can just ask. You can ask somebody, do you just want me to hear you, or do you want me to help you? And I do this a lot with my own team. And so often they will say, no, I just want you to hear me. And then later they'll say, you know what, now I would love your suggestions. So they can tell you themselves when they're ready to move between these modes, and you can then respond. The key is to be on the same wavelength, literally, as what that person would like. A couple of symptoms to know that you're not really in the listening to learn mode and you have your motor running is if you find yourself interrupting before the person is finished. If you find yourself, we call it fill in the blanks playfully, but it's actually pretty annoying, which is you're trying to fill in what somebody is trying to say before they finish. So those might be some symptoms or examples to just caution you to come back here. All right, so many of you have heard this phrase, feedback is a gift, right? In a beautiful blue Tiffany box, etc. But sometimes, and I can say for myself, I sometimes get this feedback. And I'm like, you know what? That doesn't feel like a gift. That feels pretty hard. It can feel hard. It can feel harsh. So it feels anything but a gift. Has anyone else experienced that feeling? Yeah, right. And there are definitely times when we all feel that, especially when the feedback is tough. So I want you to share what held you back from giving someone tough feedback. Just come off mute, shout it out.
Yeah, I think I can pick example. Usually I don't shy away from giving a tough feedback, but many times I have held back that after giving maybe a constructive, genuine feedback, if that person has uh, kind of more become very offensive, in that case, I was like, okay, now next time I'm not going to give a feedback. Yeah, it's more kind of not offensive, it's more of a defensive approach, right? That, oh, that doesn't apply to me. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I would say that sometimes I'm curious if it will damage our relationship.
Yeah, so fear of the relationship.
Yeah, piggybacking off that, I would say that for me, it's a question of like if I have just professional relations with the person or personal relations. In personal, I would rather hold my feedback in order not to hurt the feelings, but in professional, it's not that I don't care, but it makes more sense to keep your own sense of comfort by just telling straight away what do you think without any reservations.
Yep. Okay. So again, fear of damaging the relationship sometimes may hold you back.
Yeah, speaking
Or
about
not.
loved ones, yeah.
And those are the two biggest ones. And I think you covered both those points. So I want to preserve the relationship and I don't want to risk saying this thing that may be true and risking the relationship. And similar to what Kunjal shared, I don't want to offend or cause hurt. And sometimes I may have felt I've done that in the past and I don't want to repeat that in the future. So if we are struggling with giving people tough feedback and somebody has actually given us that feedback, can you now understand why it was obviously hard for them, more likely than not, to give us that hard feedback? And they still did it, right? So just that simple reframing for me was helpful in realizing that, yes, this thing is hard for me to hear, but it was probably equally challenging for that person to give me that feedback. So I should be respectful of that and appreciative of it. And it may still not feel like a Tiffany box kind of gift, but still feels a little bit more like a gift than I may have originally thought. So Adam Grant, who I love, in Hidden Potential says, many people fail to benefit from constructive criticism because they overreact and undercorrect. I found that so true for me and so powerful. And my question then is, if feedback is a gift, and I acknowledge that feedback is a gift, it was hard, and this person still gave it to me, why do we overreact and why do we undercorrect? And I'll turn it back to you. When you got this gift of feedback, especially tough feedback, what was hard about receiving it? Yes, Stephen.
Tends to be more the exception than the rule for the other reasons we talked about. You don't get a lot of genuine feedback in a normal course of a day. And then the reason I believe you don't correct is habits are tough to break. You know, the rule, I think it's 21 days. You have to be consistent to make a major shift in a habit. So if you just do it once or twice, the next day you're back to your old tricks. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, so lack of practice. So this thing just happens so infrequently.
Exactly.
It's challenging. Thomas says not having a relationship in the first place. Yep, we're going to talk about that in a moment. Thank you.
I think it's emotionally tough to take feedback sometimes. It's kind of like exactly what you, I think, said at the beginning, which is, you're so emotionally overwhelmed by hearing something that's perceived as negative that it is hard to take from that it's either personal or that it's very directed at you in terms of thinking, what are the steps I can take to learn from this?
Yeah. Great.
I would say that it's sometimes it's like a different perception that you have of yourself, right? Because if you like agreed with feedback, it's like it shouldn't matter. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. But
Yeah.
if it's like, oh, like, well, I thought I was really good at this, and you were telling me something contrary to that, like that's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. Man, you guys are good. It's hard to receive because it can feel, just like Ha said, like a character attack, right? Like that's not me. Are you kidding me? The tone or delivery was off. I thought I did the right thing, and this person is telling me this. The infrequency, like we don't have practice with receiving this feedback. I think all of that is true. This, again, is a link that will be in your notes called Thanks for the Feedback. And I'm only going to touch on these 3 feedback triggers that we're going to use in the workshop that's coming up in a few minutes. But this ties exactly to the points that we talked about. So the first one, so there are 3 triggers. And the first one is the identity trigger. And this is very similar to what Ha talked about. So every one of us has an identity of ourselves that we hold very dear. And if the feedback that we are getting bangs against that or breaks that identity, we feel triggered. And the moment we feel triggered, it's very hard to hear what the person is saying. And so these triggers are super important. Just being aware of the trigger will help you not respond to it, but be able to calmly react to it and hear what the person is saying without getting triggered or getting triggered less. So as an example, if I pride myself as being an empathetic leader, and somebody says to me that you are a very autocratic leader, like, what? That is not who I am. That is not who I want to be. Like, that is breaking my identity. And it feels like a character attack. This is the most triggering trigger, the identity trigger. So just be aware of it. And when you're getting the feedback and you feel your blood pressure rise and your breath quicken and your heart pound, just think about which trigger is getting activated. So identity, most powerful, most triggering. The second is the relationship trigger. So the relationship trigger is not about what is being said. It is about who is saying it. I think somebody, I can't remember if it was Stephen or somebody else had said in the chat, I don't have a relationship with the person, right? In some cases, you might have a negative relationship with the person, and anything that person says, you're just going to get triggered because of who is saying it. Sometimes it's not even the person, it's the role and the relationship with the role. So as an example, and the summer intern might come up with an idea, and my reaction might be, this intern, is from undergrad, has just come to the company 2 weeks, and they think they can tell us how to run the company better than we who've been here a while, right? So that's a relationship trigger. So I'm ignoring the content, but I'm getting triggered because of the relationship, either with the person or with that role. All right? So here you're focusing on the who, not the what. And the final trigger is the truth trigger, which is, this is just not true. This BS. So here it's not just about who is saying it. You just believe that you're looking at the content and you are disputing the validity or the fact or the truth of that content. So as an example, this person is telling me that I always talk too much. That's BS. Just this morning in this meeting with the same person there, I invited other people to share their perspective. What is this guy talking about? That's BS, right? And it may be true, but what is beyond what that person is saying? Like, what kind of questions can I ask to uncover the truth that's behind what this person's saying that is triggering me? Okay, so identity trigger, the most triggering, which is focused on that feels like a character assassination. That's not who I am. The second is the relationship trigger, which is not about the content, but about the relationship or the role. And the third and final one is the truth trigger, which is, I just disagree with this content. The final part before we move into the workshop is that this came from Esther Perel, and I just love this quote, which is, stated criticisms are unstated requests. And it was such a powerful reframe for me. So as an example, you talk too much could be a criticism of me. What is the unstated request is, I would like an opportunity to speak more. And even in that reflection, right, I can say, oh, I hear you say that I speak too much. Would you like an opportunity to speak more at these forums? I can, in that reflecting or mirroring of what they're saying, I can also test whether this is the request or whether it's a different request. But it is so powerful. I cannot tell you how much I use this. And it's such an amazing, positive response to criticisms. Okay, so we gave you just a teaser of a bunch of different things. And so I'm going to move into the workshop phase. So it's going to be 20 minutes, not 25. So just so we have a chance to come back and reflect. So Ha is going to drop a link to this exact deck in here. The main piece that I want you to get to is this particular slide, which is the workshop. So you're going to go into breakouts. Most of you will be in breakouts of 3. Some 1 or 2 might be in breakouts of 2. The roles, the critical roles are the feedback giver and the feedback receiver. Take turns. You're all going to play all the roles. So the only question is who's going to go first for each role. The feedback giver is going to give, so you're going to have a feedback giver, a feedback receiver, and an observer. The feedback giver is going to give feedback to the feedback receiver. There are 3 scenarios in there. You're welcome to use them. Each scenario has one of the 3 triggers, the identity, relationship, or truth trigger. If none of those scenarios resonate for you, make your own, but just stay with one of these 3 triggers. So you're going to just tell the receiver what scenario you're planning so they are in that same mind space. So you're going to give feedback to the receiver. The receiver is going to use the techniques we just learned. So the reflection, what I hear you say is, and I want, even though this is a scenario, you as the receiver are likely going to get some element of trigger. So pay attention to your triggers. Why are you getting triggered? Is it an identity trigger, relationship trigger, or truth trigger? Make sure that you are listening to learn. So don't try to rebut the feedback. Don't try to justify it. Go make sure that you are intentionally in this listening to learn phase. So ask questions, probe, help me. Can you tell me more about that? So really probe on this. And then if there are criticisms, restate those criticisms as requests. And again, test that hypothesis. So Stephen, what I hear you say is X. Is this, would you like Y, right? Would you like more space to share your opinions, etc. So test those hypotheses or requests with that person and see if that's true. And then if you have groups of 3, you're going to have an observer and a timekeeper who will give you feedback for both the giver and the receiver on how things went. You're going to have 3 rounds so that each of you gets a role through each of these. And each round is going to be 5 minutes. Ha is going to be our timekeeper. And let me warn you, she is tough. So stay on track. And we'll give you a warning at the end of each 5 minutes so that you can rotate and each person gets a chance to go through these roles. You will find the scenarios at the end of your document, and those are in the scenario section here. Any big questions before we break?
Okay, and then Randy, I think given the time, I'm gonna try to get people into groups of 2 instead of 3.
Okay,
So
sure.
I'm gonna create the breakout rooms now. And if you're in a room by yourself, I'll move you.
Hi, if there's any room of, is there just one person in a room I can join?
Well, it was Mira, but then I think I just tried to move
Okay.
her. Yeah, Thomas, I'll move to room. Why don't you go to room 5? Are you able to, or no?
Let's see. Join breakout room. Oh, it says I've been assigned to 4, so you might have
Okay.
moved me.
Okay, okay. I'm gonna move Thomas to room 4
Oh, okay.
because there's only one other person. Okay, for room 4. Okay, and let me see. Okay, so Shalina and Thomas are in room 4, so you can hang out here or you can go there. And I think
Okay.
everyone's in a room of like 3 or 2.
Okay, I'll go join them, just see if instructions are clear, and then I'll hop back here.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so far so good.
Awesome.
Are you able to drop me into any other room?
Yeah, let's drop you into room 2. So let me see how I do that. 1 second. Okay, let's see. Put in waiting room. Whoops. Okay, let me see. Put into the breakout room. Are you there?
I am back in the main room with
Okay,
you.
yeah, sorry. Okay. How do I put you into? Let me, okay. Oh, let me move you to room. Okay, sorry. Okay, now I figured it out. I'll move you to room 2.
Yeah, that seems to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, seems like things are going well.
Okay, good. I just sent out the broadcast message to make sure that they switched to the third person.
Yep. So this would be the last round, right? So
Be the
in,
last round. Yep.
Yeah.
And then like around 9:50, we'll bring everybody back.
yep, perfect. And then we can wrap up. And do you want to put your link up first? The feedback link now?
Well, what I'll usually do is I'll usually screen share and project while you take questions, or
Okay,
during the share out. So whatever,
Yeah.
we could do the share out first, and then I'll put up the survey and then we'll take questions.
okay. And then, yeah, I just have one last slide on the final reflection. Actually, you have the deck. So if you want, you can just bring that up, the final reflections one.
Okay,
After
final
your
questions.
question.
That's the share out, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
So there's the reflections screen. So there's reflect workshop. Then there's the reflection screen, which is their reflections. And then final
Okay,
step
wait.
of did you meet your
Let
goal?
me just screen share here, just to make sure I'm on the right slide.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we are now.
Yeah, so we will be at that reflection. Yeah. So when we're doing the reflections, I think at that point, if you want, you can put up the feedback
Okay,
thing, just switch to that tab. And then after we do the quick round robin of reflections from the team, I can do a wrap up of this
perfect.
slide.
Yep, okay, that sounds
And we'll
good.
be done.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. Okay. So once we bring everybody back, okay, let me just make sure I got that again. Okay. Oh, too many slides. Okay.
Yeah.
So final reflection. So as we're doing the reflections, it'll be good to have this slide up. So let's do the reflections. I'll collect the feedback afterwards, and then you do the
Okay.
the final wrap up, right?
Sure.
This is the final.
Correct.
Oh, okay. So when we bring people back, when we bring people back and do a share out, I'll throw up the slide.
Okay.
And then we'll hear people as other folks are filling out the survey, and then you'll do that last slide. Okay, sorry, I got it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Small group, but they seem very engaged.
Yes. Yeah, lots of good conversations.
And do you know a lot of the folks who are here?
I know a couple, maybe 2 or 3 people. So
Okay.
Mira, I know, we met at, I think it was one of the events that you were at.
Oh,
Was she
really?
at your house or the Cupertino one? I can't remember.
She was at my house.
Okay, yeah, that's
You
where
were
I
at my
met her.
house. Yeah. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, yeah. And she joined after that dinner.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she and I have been in touch. We did a one-on-one, and then she went to India and she just got back. So we're supposed to catch up again.
Okay, good. Okay, let's see. It's 9:49, so I'm gonna close out the breakout rooms.
Yeah, I
here.
think when you close it, it gives them a 1-minute warning,
Yeah,
right?
okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we're closing breakout rooms. Okay, and then I'm gonna close all the rooms.
Yeah, when these breakouts work, they work well, but it's always challenging to get them to work just right.
I've collected so much feedback, and everybody loves the breakouts.
Yeah.
Everybody loves the breakouts, and the most common is there wasn't enough time.
Yeah.
So, welcome back, Thomas.
Welcome back.
Okay, and I'm gonna just throw up this.
Shalini, kudos to you for making this work on a phone.
I'm supposed to be driving to work right now, but I decided to stay at home for a bit.
Oh, okay. As long as you're not driving and doing this.
No, I was gonna be them. Finish it up.
So while people are coming back, we can also have you all take out your phone, because feedback is a gift, and Randhir gets the feedback verbatim, but thankfully it's anonymous, Randhir. So, but what did you like? What could have gone better? And then Randhir, as people are filling out the feedback, feel free to collect everybody's wisdom from the session.
Yeah. So I popped into a couple of the rooms, and it was great to see people really embarking on this journey and being very intentional about using some of the tools and techniques we just talked about. So hopefully that will become not an infrequent event, but something that you can incorporate more frequently. But I'm curious to hear, how did that feel for both? Let's start with the givers, the feedback givers. What worked well? What was challenging as you gave this feedback?
I'll jump in. I think like our first scenario, I was giving feedback, and it was the relationship scenario of giving feedback to someone who's higher up than me. And this was challenging. Just, I reverted, even though we're role playing, I reverted back into this idea of, hey, it's really hard to give feedback to someone who's above you without sounding facetious, right? And because you want to go in and say, hey, you're dominating the conversation. We want to have other people be equal. In order to establish that, you have to go in and it's like go in with a non-threatening way and be like, hey, we really respect what you're doing. You're a great leader, etc. But would love if you could also maybe consider my input. And it's like begging, right? And so that part is uncomfortable for me because I feel like it's something that we kind of naturally tend to do. And it's like, how do you get past that feeling of non-genuineness and trying to establish this?
Yeah, it's fascinating to me that even in these kind of fake scenarios, it's still challenging.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Shalini. Any other reflections from the feedback givers or in that role?
I think we had an interesting exercise. I was the giver, and I think I got some good feedback at the end of like I might have been sandwiching it a little too much of like, here's a compliment, and now I'm going to come in with the hook on the critical feedback. So something to be aware of.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Chris.
I
Yeah, so
just-
we're still tentative about giving the feedback and trying to couch it.
I just try to also end the feedback on some action point in a sense of like, okay, so here's the feedback, but I have a suggestion of what can we do? Like not necessarily give a solution, but just even like an invitation sort of to discuss. Because I quite often in my past received feedback just bluntly saying like, okay, this is good, this is bad. And then you're like just sitting there, okay, so what exactly am I supposed to do? Like, where are we now? Do we have a chance to indeed discuss this or like where do we go from here? So I try usually to end up conversations in some sort of like action points in this sense, and I think it worked.
Okay, great. Yeah, so inviting, being part of the solution versus just depositing a problem for the other person to deal with. Yeah,
Indeed.
thanks, Alex. Okay, so let's switch to the receiver. In the receiver role, what was easy, what was challenging? Stephen.
So I had Alexander, and when he was the giver, he was very careful, and I gave him, the feedback. He used we and us a lot rather than you, because you could immediately trigger people as accusatory. He was doing, a relationship one about someone who was dominating a meeting. And so he was very careful, we meet as a team to do this, and us, and ultimately he offered a very polite, proactive, let's mitigate this. And so he was very careful. I mean, listening to him, I felt I wasn't being accused. I think he used the you word once, maybe twice at most in the whole dialogue. He did a great job.
Nice job. Okay, so how did that show up for you as the receiver then, Stephen?
I told him my feedback is actually I felt good in that he was offering a forum. How can we collaborate, work together rather than accusing, saying, I mean, the gist of what he was saying was obviously that I'd be dominating the meeting. No one could get their ideas across and I was blocking everybody, but it was in such a polite way. And he ended on the note, let's collaborate and figure a way forward with this. You couldn't get mad. I mean, he was very calm and polite about it. And the message came across loud and clear. So that's what I said. He did an excellent job.
Great job.
I might add, I had a recent conversation with a team member with on this subject, and that was one of the pieces of advice was to use we and us versus you and I. The other one was if you feel like you have something critical, one way you might diffuse it to becoming more hostile or escalating is asking it as a question, like help me understand this, or what are our concerns with this, or how this approach, and then often can leave the other party in a place where they don't feel like they're on the defensive as much.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Okay, so anyone else? Last call. All right. So just a couple of wrap up things here. So all of you put down some goal for coming to the session. So just again, reflection of, did you meet your goal? Right? You to learn new techniques, tools, ways to be better, as we thought about the triggers, the rephrasing, criticisms as requests, reflecting, etc. Are there listening to learn, listening to win, etc.? Did you meet your goal of learning something? And if you did, what's the next step? What are you going to do differently tomorrow? Or even today, if it's early enough in the day. So let's make this not just an interesting session or an intellectual exercise, but the intent is that this is something that we can take with us into our life. And then if you want more, so we talked about the listening piece. As we went into the giving piece as well, there's lots of other stuff in the workshop which covers all those different sections. But if you want more, there's a ton more we'll cover in the workshop. You can sign up for the wait list. And if you want to just do self-paced stuff, there's a ton in the deck itself of a lot of the material that I think is amazing and that influenced this session. So thank you again for showing up. Back to you, Ha.
Oh, Randhir, that was awesome. I definitely have a couple of things that I'm going to be changing in the future to make sure that I'm a more active listener. This was awesome. I would say if you haven't already, connect with Randhir on LinkedIn. He's an amazing individual, coach, leader. I'm excited to hear what you're up to next after your Omata Health chapter closes, Randhir. For everybody else, I hope to meet some of you at Sidebar Summit, April 23rd, 24th. And if you have something that you want to teach and you want to do a member-led session, reach out to me. We would benefit so immensely from your wisdom and hard-earned leadership insights. So with that, we'll give everybody their time back. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randhir.